I'm Gerald Bentley. This is Wrestling with Sales, and today we have a special show. We are talking with Michael Kingston. He is in the middle of a Kickstarter campaign for Headlocked Tails from the Road Volume 3. Michael, I wanted to get a chance to talk to you. This is a really awesome idea. I know you've had a few volumes out already. There's great stories from pro wrestlers on the road. That's what makes wrestling podcasts so entertaining. What brought the idea to put them into graphic novels about?
So, I've always loved wrestling and I love comics, and for a long time they never made good wrestling comics. So initially, I started out by writing Headlocked, which is a HBO style drama about a theater major who drops out of college to chase his dream of becoming a wrestler.
Okay.
And then a lot of the wrestlers who liked comics would buy it from me at shows and stuff. I would see, some of the real hardcore comics guys like a Hurricane or Rob Van Dam, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, like those types of guys. I would meet them at Comic Cons and they would get my book from me, and then everybody was telling me how much they liked it, and that sort of led into us doing Tales from the Road, which are a series of short stories that we co-create with different wrestlers. Um, but they're not just like true life things. I mean, they're all the stories are technically fictional,
Uh-huh.
just because we don't want to run into trademark stuff. Some of them are adapted from real life stories, but then like some of them are just out there. Like I did a story with Gangrel, and I am one about a guy that trains Bigfoot to wrestle. Um, so we kind of, it's kind of fun to just sort of creatively, get to creatively jam with creators that you respect. When we sit down and come up with different ideas and stuff and how we can apply, wrestling to stories or whatever, and then we all sort of set it in the main Headlock universe, like I said, to kind of avoid any trademark nonsense
Hmm.
or whatever. And it's just been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to make, and I feel like for people who like wrestling and comics, they're a lot of fun to. It's a lot of fun to see your favorite wrestler sort of just try something different, I guess.
Sure. Well, and just looking at some of the covers, some of the characters that have been involved, you have a previous version with DanHausen and Brody King, which is a very unusual pairing. I guess very nice, very evil,
Well, so
and
we
very
did a
big.
we did initially the Danhausen story we did to raise money for him when he broke his leg before he was in AEW. We had done a creep show cover for him for volume 2, and that was one of our better selling books. And then we had them at San Diego Comic Con this year, and I had previously done a story with Brody and had previously done a story with Danhausen, so we just we made a little San Diego exclusive. It was sold out almost immediately. It was a real hot one. I will tell you that Danhausen and Brody had the biggest line I've ever had in 15 years of Comic Con. I mean, I've had Ric Flair, I've had Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers. We've had John Morrison, Lita, Rey Mysterio, and Danhausen and Brody's line was the longest we've ever had.
Well, people definitely love Danhausen, and they want to give him their human monies, don't they?
They certainly do.
Now, how long has the universe been going? How long have you been at it now? I guess you kind of said it, 15 years.
Yeah. I started Headlocked in 2008, and then that was just me. I didn't have anybody attached to it, and then
Hmm.
I got Jerry Lawler to do the covers for it. I'd say around 2010, and it was sort of a slog for a while. I mean, to be honest with you, just because people have their sort of bubbles, and for whatever reason, I couldn't get anybody in the comics business to understand that wrestling and comics belong together. Like
Absolutely,
they're
sure.
essentially the same thing with just an added dimension. Um, comics is 2D and wrestling is 3D, but I mean, it's a no brainer to me. But I mean, literally, publishers laughed in my face when I tried to pitch them the idea of doing a wrestling comic. And it's funny because
Huh.
now a lot of people do wrestling comics, but like we were really sort of the pioneer of the modern era of books. And so I started out by selling my book out of my backpack at like Ring of Honor shows and just sort of just doing the grind. And we grew from there, and then I started doing some conventions, and that's when I met the wrestlers, and then it's just sort of, getting Jerry attached to it helped bring some awareness. But I still don't sell my book in comic book stores unless the comic book stores contact me directly. Like, I don't put my book in previews and use any of that apparatus. Like, we've basically existed outside of the system, like 100% DIY, and that's how it's gone. And we've done it successfully for 15 years. I've collaborated with probably 40 different wrestlers on stuff, and it's been super, super gratifying.
Well, and mentioning that being outside of the normal universe, still a little bit of time remaining in the Kickstarter for this project. The link is right there on the screen. It'll also be in the description. Now, how do you want people to get involved? How can people get involved in getting Headlocked Tales from the Road Volume 3?
The Kickstarter is really the main thing. Like, that was what basically changed our direction. Like, we couldn't find a publisher, and then everything was just very incremental. There's only so much you can do, when you're hand selling every single book.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 2014, Kickstarter became more of a thing. Became a thing, and then we put the second volume of Headlocked up, and it did great. And then we did we did the third, and then we remastered the first issue because Jerry Lawler does these Norman Rockwell covers for us, and we didn't do that for the first one, so we did a remaster for the first one, and then we did the fourth one, and then the Tales from the Road started. That was something I was able to do during the pandemic when conventions shut down, because a lot of what we do, conventions is such a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just did my 5th convention in a row this past weekend
Mm.
in Salt Lake City with Scott Steiner, no less, and they it's so Kickstarter is the way that we get the books made on the scale that we make them. For the room behind me is basically where everything in Headlocked is done except draw. I do everything that's not involved in drawing. So, I mean, for the scale that we operate on and for what we're able to do, I mean, I have the only wrestling booth at San Diego Comic-Con. We have a big wrestling booth at New
Mm.
York Comic-Con. It's Kickstarter is what allows us to do it. So, that's the best way to help. I mean, it's like a pre-order, but you can
Yeah.
get we can get extra stuff. I mean, like, you can back it and get, and just get the book, but we have other volumes. We have variant covers. We have art prints. I've signed art prints by The Undertaker and Sting and Bret Hart and all kinds of cool stuff. We have just a ton of different things. You can get the original single issues. You can get the trades. So it's really super, super customizable for whatever whatever your sort of experience level is with the the books, or or your wallet for that matter. So.
Well, and I guess it's not too early because I was at Costco yesterday. They have all the Christmas decorations out. It would be a great holiday gift because if you know somebody who has a favorite wrestler, maybe it's Adam Cole, Bebe. What a neat gift because wrestling fans go for the collectibles, go for the merchandise. They get stuff that supports their favorite wrestler, and you can literally get it. And like you were saying, Michael, you can get a customized Sting autograph. That would be amazing to have. A nice, really nice item.
So the other thing about it is that Adam Cole cover you just showed,
Yeah.
one of the things that we do here is for this book we have four variant covers. We have an Adam Cole cover, we have a Jay White cover, a Trinity Fatu cover, and a Powerhouse Hobbs cover, and those are only available through the campaign. We did a Danhausen Creepshow cover for Volume 2, and you can get that obviously at just sort of the regular price
Hmm.
of what it is to get a book. But then after that, we don't make them anymore. So, I mean, the price goes up substantially. I mean, you can't find those Danhausen covers. Um, I've seen them go for up to $100 on eBay.
Hmm.
So, I mean, they're super collectible. So if you're a collectible type person, I mean, these covers are going to be super limited. I mean, obviously Adam Cole's a very popular wrestler, and maybe we make 300 of those.
Really? Okay.
So
So
it's
pretty tight
yeah.
quantity. So it's something that definitely will have I mean, everybody says everything has collectible value, but if you only have 300 of them, that's a very limited number.
Sure. And they're all, obviously they're all extremely popular stars. I mean, obviously Jay White was one of the biggest guys in Japan, and I mean
Yeah,
Trinity's amazing. I mean, she's the top star in Impact right now.
yeah,
I would argue, but I mean,
knockout champion in Impact.
and I mean, I don't even think Hobbs has scratched his potential by half yet. So,
Mm-mm.
um, I mean, he's gonna be huge.
So is
Um,
the Hobbs chapter titled The Book of Hobbs?
it is not,
No? Okay, just checking.
but
As a dealer, you spend a lot of time buying cars at auction. If you're using Edge Pipeline to manage your purchases, then this is big news. Montway Auto Transport has partnered with Auction Edge to add a transportation option onto Edge Pipeline. Now dealers can manage their auction buys and book transportation with just one click right in the Edge Pipeline platform. As a nationwide leader in auto transport, Montway understands a dealer's need for speed and efficiency and can arrange single or multi-vehicle moves from auction to any lot in the country. With Montway's technology, dealers can gain full transit visibility and tracking after an order has been booked, making it much easier to manage inventory. Buy, ship, and track all in Edge Pipeline. Go to www.montway.com/WS to learn more.
but it's it's been a really fun process, and I mean, I think personally, Volume 3 is probably the most fun cover to cover collection of stories we've done. The Adam Cole story is video game based in nature, as you can imagine.
Sure, makes sense.
The Jay White story is essentially what if Willy Wonka was a wrestling school instead of a chocolate factory, and what would that look like? And Trinity's is very Broadway based, sort
Yeah,
of
it looks musical
Chicago
based.
based, and so we try to find the things that the wrestlers like, or the talent likes, or the stories they want to tell, and then we figure out a way to tell it. But the story we did with Lita is so she brings her dog. She's done a ton of shows with me, and she brings her dog to every show. And so we did a sort of story where she's a lucha detective with her dog, and it's got kind of a Scooby Doo vibe. And it's a lot of fun,
Yeah,
and that's it. Like, we try to do stuff that's fun. Like there can only be so many stories about you know news stories or people's contract status
sure.
or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I can truly say that there's nobody that's doing anything like what we're doing, and
No, and there's a escapism that comes
yeah,
with wrestling, you know? There's something to be said. It's good to know what's going on in the back. It helps you, I think, get a better understanding. But there is something to be said for the way it used to be back when you and I were growing up, where the good guys and the bad guys couldn't get seen together, and everything was in kayfabe. So you didn't really know what was coming. It's good to have that escapism. When you know everything, sometimes you know too much.
here's the thing about that, though. See, I'm friends with, I don't know, probably 40 wrestlers or whatever,
Hmm.
and I hear all kinds of stuff that never gets reported or whatever. So, like, the idea that anybody knows everything, I mean, when they say the internet fans don't know anything, they really don't.
Sure.
I mean, I probably know, I mean, just me not even being in the business and just having a tangential relationship with a bunch of people, like,
Hmm.
I probably know 40 stories that would have been like the top story of that week had it
Sure.
ever come out or come to light. I mean, some people are just better at keeping their stuff quiet than other people and whatever, but, like, I mean, the truly, I mean, people really don't know half of what goes on. So I always find that kind of fascinating.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. The big blow up all over the internet last year about CM Punk and the Elite. I covered professional sports, was a morning drive host and a play-by-play person, and there's fights in locker rooms literally every other day,
Sure.
and it just never gets out there because the team has it clamped down.
Yeah,
So
some
it's
people are
nothing
better at
unprecedented.
some people are better at keeping a lid on their stuff, or controlling their narrative, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, well, then you have to get the EC3 edition now that he's the NWA champion.
I mean, I love working with everybody. I mean, honestly, everybody. The cool thing about wrestlers is that, just by nature, they're storytellers. They tell stories in the
Hmm.
ring. They tell stories in between shows. Like, if you've ever spent any kind of time around wrestlers, like, it's just who they are at their core, I think. And that's why it's been so much fun to sort of create with them. And when we do stuff that's not bound by branding and character and whatever, then you can really kind of flex your muscles and do stuff without having to worry about, oh, they're talking about Vince McMahon here or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
we're just literally out just to have fun.
We'll be
So
right back to our guest this week, Michael Kingston, talking about Headlocked Tales from the Road, Volume 3. But I want to give you a special preview on what's coming up next on Wrestling with Sales. We are going to be joined by the NWA Junior World Heavyweight Champion, Colby Carino. He's going to be talking about the big event coming up October 28th in Cleveland, Ohio. The NWA presents Samhain. He is going to face off against Joe Alonzo. It's one of the feature matches in what could be the most violent pay-per-view in NWA history. The main event, EC3, returning to his hometown. He's going to take on Tom Latimer, who gave up the NWA TV title for the shot at the 10 pounds of gold. Of course, Tom Latimer going to be brought out to the ring and joined by his wife, the longtime NWA Women's Champion, just getting back into it after dropping that title to Kenzie Page. But the Brick House will be a force to be reckoned with at ringside. The NWA presents Samhain, October 28th in Cleveland, Ohio. You can get more information on it. Visit thenationalwrestlingalliance.com. And by all means, tune in next week where we will be talking about this event and talking about the NWA in general with Colby Carino. We'll get back with more from Michael Kingston talking about Headlocked Tales from the Road, Volume 3, right here on Wrestling with Sales.
And some of the stories are very powerful and real life. Like, I did a story with Shane Helms. He literally called me from a doctor's office. He was in the waiting room waiting to get an MRI on his neck, not knowing if his wrestling career was going to be over. And we conceived a story while he was sitting there. And it's a very powerful story, but it's fun. But it's in volume 1, but it's one of my favorites. Did a story with Mustafa Ali that was very based off of his real life experiences. And sometimes we take elements of people's lives and then sort of recombine them into something else. The story I did
Sure.
with Pentagon for volume 2, we took a couple of different elements of things that had happened to him in his life and sort of put them in a blender and came up with a completely different story. So it's every interaction, every collaboration is different. Sometimes I sit at a bar with guys and we just kind of riff on stuff. Mick Foley wrote like a huge prose story. Crime Time, when I did the story with them, like Shad sent me like almost like a storyboard that was how they wanted things to look. So it's been fun. It's definitely my favorite part of what we do now is just getting to riff with guys and sort of just flex our storytelling muscles.
Yeah, so you get an interactive nature to it where you guys come up with an idea up front. Do you write out a draft then and go through a couple of revisions usually?
Yeah. So yeah, we basically come together on the story, idea, concept, whatever. I write the script, I send it to him, we go notes until we're good with it, and then it goes to the artist, and then we make it. So some of the collaborations are super super easy. Some of them are tougher. Some guys are very particular,
Hmm.
and some people are a little easier. Some people you just vibe with better. I mean, the story, I was telling you before, the story I wrote with Shane, like, I mean, I had that literally done before he went into the doctor.
Huh.
It was one of the easiest things I've ever written, and it's one of my favorite stories that we've done. Um, so it's like I said, it's different for everyone. Some of them come easier, and Some of them, and there have been a small handful of people that we just couldn't make something work, and that
Mm,
happens. So, and it's fine. Like it's not, some people don't jive well, or some people, and some people don't understand comics as a medium. So,
yeah,
they
would
they may
probably.
like comics, like you can be a fan of something without
Mhm,
understanding how to do it, just like, all, wrestling fans.
sure.
So, but yeah, it's been cool.
How do you get the artist involved? Because it really is some great quality artwork.
So the artist on the Adam Cole cover is Mikel Molopolo, who is the artist on Headlocked, who's also a wrestler from New Zealand,
Hmm,
Samoan, and he was a former tag champ with Haku in New Zealand.
okay.
But yeah, he's an actual wrestler. The artist on most of the Tales from the Road stories and the main cover, so that was Mikel again, is Doug Hills, who's also didn't have a long career, but was trained and had a little bit of a cup of coffee on the indies around here. And then obviously having Jerry Lawler do art for it. We've had, Dexter Loomis has done a couple pieces for us. Tugboat actually drew something for us for a previous novel.
Hmm,
Booker T drew something for us. So uh, it's funny because lots of people are good at multiple things, and you don't necessarily know it, obviously.
sure.
So I mean, a lot of people kind of knew about Jerry and his art, but like, the guys that have, I guess it's more of a hobby will come and find me like, hey, I've got some pen and ink skills. I'm like, all right, let's do something.
Yeah,
So Tugboat, like Fred Ottman drew a piece for us, and it's fun. It's neat to you can always tell people are excited when they have something that people don't know about.
oh, sure.
Um, Tony Atlas did a piece for us too. I mean, people have seen Tony's art. Like he does pointillism, which I think is amazing for a man that size to just be hunched over a table, just doing little dots. Um, but yeah, it's been really that's a lot of fun, and you can kind of see the excitement on people when you ask them about the thing that they're passionate about. Because at the end of the day, right, wrestling is a job for these people, and they
Hmm,
they enjoy it, but it's still a job. One of the things that always tickles me is when I talk to a wrestler about something, they're like, "Oh, I'll have to check with work." You know what I mean? And they're talking about WWE or
sure.
something.
Yeah, 'cause at the
But
end of the day, it is a job. I mean, it's just
right.
like a quarterback or a NBA player. The game is the job.
And as fans, sometimes it's hard to necessarily put yourself in that perspective because you're a fan and you love
Hmm,
it and you could, do it all day, but you haven't seen the how the sausage is made and dealt with the office politics and whatever. So, when you're approaching somebody for something different, I think sometimes that's enabled me to get a lot more done and to, like I said, we've probably collaborated with like 40 people at this point, on art and story and stuff because I'm not asking them about, how did they break into wrestling or whatever,
sure.
you know what I mean? The same questions they get every day, or, I wasn't the 600th person that day to ask Jerry Lawler about Andy Kaufman. I came to him with comics and art, and those are things that he loves. So
Hmm,
you're kind of, it helps you establish a better connection, I think.
sure. And shows everybody's a person. There's different interests. Well, hey, as we're winding it down here, got the dealership rescue belt for you. Get you a title belt. You
All
put a
right.
championship reign in your bio. Of course, we want people to reach out to the Kickstarter. You can go. I got the Facebook address up. Go to Headlocked Comic. Get you on Twitter at Headlocked Comic, and then put that Kickstarter back up just so you can get in line early for Volume 3. But, Michael, I wanted to ask you a few quick questions, kind of a championship round.
Sure.
We've been talking about wrestling and comics. Who's your favorite comic character?
Man. So little not obscure, but independent wise, like
Okay.
Concrete was the is my favorite character. Um, he's by Paul Chadwick, and it was actually reading Concrete which made me want to write comics. Like I read comics my whole
Hmm,
life, superhero stuff and whatever, and I've always liked the man on the street stuff better. I mean, like Spider Man, and the Marvel universe always appealed to me more just because they always felt like everyman characters, whereas a lot of the DC
sure.
heroes sort of feel like gods. And I always found them less relatable. Um, but like the X-Men sort of got me into comics,
Uh-huh.
and then later on I discovered like Preacher and Transmetropolitan and some of the more independent, like non-superhero oriented stuff, and then I loved it. And
Sure.
then, but like Concrete was the thing that made me want to write comics.
That's a good it's a good reference. Hey, and some good news for the entertainment industry. It looks like the writer strike's over. The acting strike's probably going to be over soon. How about movies, either wrestling movies, TV shows, or superhero movies? Because there's so many wrestlers involved in those now. Kind of some of your favorite entertainment with a wrestling connection.
Hmm. I mean, I think that everything that John Cena has done has been really fun, and I find it very interesting that John Cena was the squeaky clean wrestler that's done all these filthy movie roles, and The Rock was
Hmm.
sort of a filthy wrestler who's now like a Disney superhero. You really wouldn't have guessed that going that way. And then I think the biggest surprise is that somehow Batista ended up as the best actor out of all of them. Um, but I'll tell you a little interesting story. I had a little
Hmm.
sort of brush with The Rock at one point about Headlocked, and we had an interaction on Twitter, and he asked me to send stuff to his team, and it went back and forth for a while. But basically, it was right when Jumanji came out, and he sort of transitioned to a Disney superstar, and
Sure.
they were like, 5 years ago, this was probably be right in our alley, but it doesn't really fit with our branding now. They're like, we probably wouldn't take ballers if it came to us today, which I understand.
Sure.
But it's kind of cool to know that, like, hey, you know what I mean? Like we wrote a story that probably could have got us there, but we kind of missed the window. So it's one of the downsides of sort of being in this avenue that I'm in, where I'm just kind of doing everything, sort of off the grid, is that
Yeah. Well, there's
it's
only one of you, so
there's hard to it's hard sometimes to make connections with, that next level. So, but it's fine. I mean, honestly, like all I ever really wanted to do was make cool comic books. But that was a fun interaction. It was an interesting time in my life because I was like, oh man, The Rock just messaged me. Like, what the
yeah.
hell?
Well, and just to wrap it up, where can people see you next? I know you said you go to a bunch of conventions. What's coming up next?
New York Comic Con is the next one, and then I'll be doing Minneapolis or Twin Cities Comic Con in Minneapolis, Galaxy Con in Columbus.
Okay.
I think that's going to round out the year. I may do one or two more, but I have like 5 projects that I'm in the middle of. We're doing a story with Trish Stratus next month that I'm very excited about.
Mm,
We have to obviously get this book made and
sure.
fulfilled, which takes some time. And I have uh, a project that I should be able to announce very, very soon. That's super wild. It's not a headlock project per se, but it deals with a collaboration with a wrestler. It's more in a horror comedy vein. So I just got a lot of work to do, and then I'm hopefully going to pick up real heavy with conventions and stuff again at the beginning of the year.
That's terrific. And the best way for viewers, potential customers to find you.
Every social media platform I'm on is Headlocked Comic. It's one word. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, and they're all run by me. So if you have questions, you can reach me at any one of those sites. Um, but that's we try to make it as easy as possible, and then obviously you can follow us on any of those things. You can follow us on Kickstarter and get notified when new projects drop. But obviously we promote them on all our socials too. So we're out there.
Awesome. Well, hey, Michael, thanks a lot for stepping in the ring here. Really appreciate you taking the time, and feel free to reach out when it's up and available for sale. We definitely want to direct people to it, and I'll be sure to head over to the Kickstarter here in just a few minutes.
Thank you so much. I really
Sure.
appreciate
Thanks a lot.
having me on.